couple of wide receivers dealing with injuries. Just how have you seen some of the guys take advantage of the reps they've gotten as a result?
Well, that's a great question. You know, I know Coach and I have talked about Doug, you know what I mean, and how his improvement has come along. Trevor Wilson's doing a really good job. We've talked about Keaton back in here. And so those three guys in particular, the first names that pop in my mind about kind of taking advantage of some of the getting extra reps in practice and games and whatever it might be. And it's showing up on the field. When those guys played, you know, the other night, they did a great job. You know, I was proud of them, how they're doing it. And, you know, I think every college football coach or any football coach across the country wants to be able to have depth, right? And so then if you can, in the way we practice, you know, hopefully it should organically occur because we get a lot of reps. But when you start getting guys who get more and more game reps, that's the greatest teacher experience. And so those guys are able to capitalize on all the experiences that they're getting.
I also wanted to ask, I think with Illinois, one of the key challenges is going to be for your interior offensive line dealing with those defensive tackles. Just how do you kind of prepare those guys for what awaits them on Friday?
Well, you watch the film and you try to give them really good looks during the week in practice of what you're doing. But yeah, those guys are dang good, man. And it's going to be an awesome game. What an unbelievable challenge for our front and for our football program to see how we match up. I think we know that they're going to be a physical football team, and you know you've heard us talk about wanting to be more physical as a football team, and we've developed that all spring, all fall camp, all summer, and this will be the game that's going to test it to see if what we're doing is paying off.
You guys have played three-man fronts in the Big 12, but it seems like there's more almost a five. How different is their kind of look to what you do see in the Big 12?
Well, what they have that maybe makes them a little bit more unique is they're going to take five guys up front, like you're saying, and that are bigger bodies. A lot of times maybe those outside guys are a little bit lighter and they kind of are sliding in and out. But they've got a good secondary. They did lose a couple guys at graduation last year, which I know you're all aware of, or whatever, the draft. I don't know if they graduated, but they were just locking down and play man coverage a lot. And so they were able to add those extra guys in the box and get away with playing some bigger bodies in there. So that part's a little bit unique, and we got to be able to handle that size and strength.
Something Lance talked about yesterday was the physicality for you guys in the spring practice and making that physical with kind of this game in Big 12 in mind. How do you approach a practice then this week? Do you go really physical? Do you make sure guys are fresh? How do you balance?
Well, you balance both of those things. What you can't do right now at this point of the year is just like, hey, let's go out there and just helmets and kind of get ready, right? Okay, you got to prepare yourself for what's going to occur. And so we ramp up the physicality, but we're smart. And this is what we do in a given week, any week, right? So this isn't just unique to this opponent. But our process would be that, you know, you have days where you're in pads and the expectation you go hard, and those are the most physical practices. But you start in the week in practices that don't have as much physicality, but require you to run around and know your assignments and bend your knees and all those sort of things. So you balance both of those things because you got to do both. You can't really do one or the other and expect to get a good product on Saturday.
Andy, I know Terry talked a lot about yards after the catch and finding those lanes this offseason that those guys can obviously turn plays into bigger plays. You seem to have a group of receivers that they think they should score every time they catch a ball, and I wonder what the mentality and mindset is behind that, and if that's unique at all, how much you like that, all those things.
Well, you want players that want the ball, right? That's you know, you want guys who want to play, participate, want the ball. And I guess to your question about, you know, is there a uniqueness to them? I think in the last year, the emphasis that's been put on how you go about getting the yards after the catch, okay? The techniques necessary that T-Sam is coaching and the rest of the offensive staff, because it's all of our offensive skill players, the things that we're doing. What I'm proud of is that those things are showing up on film, and they're showing up in situations that might, to the untrained eye or someone who's just kind of casually watching a game, might not really pay attention to. And and we showed it to the whole offense in the game. LJ had 2 catches on these little hitch routes, and on both times he immediately caught the ball and went forward. And he caught the ball around 5.5 yards, and both times he moved forward for 12. And both times resulted in first downs. Small, you wouldn't pay attention because it's not an explosive play, and it's not a guy who broke 30 tackles, you know, and that made some sort of top 10 play, but important to a drive and having success while we're on the field for that series. And so those guys, individuals, and specifically the receiver group, recognize that, sees that, and that's showing up in games and when we're doing live action in practice or scrimmages. So it's been good.
You gotta love that, right? Like you see them jumping around when they just missed or almost got the corner and didn't, but it was close. I mean, you gotta love seeing.
Yes,
that.
their understanding on the intent and how things are going is at the highest it's been since we've been here. And it should be that way because we've been with them for, how many ever semesters now, and they're growing and they're getting better and they're developing, which is what we want to be able to do. But it makes me excited that we want guys who, as I talked about, I think it was the last time we heard about what an eraser is, right? Okay, you want guys who are going to erase that kind of stuff, they're going to erase, a play that should gain 10 yards and now it turns into 40. That's a big deal, which happened a couple times last week.
What else stood out to you when you look back at the Missouri State game?
To us, the things that we were emphasizing through spring and fall after looking at last year, showing up on tape. Some things in the perimeter, some of the perimeter blocking, again, things that if you're just casually watching the game, it's a gain of 7. But that could easily have been a gain of 2 had we not executed the technique that we needed to. Okay, and then in turn, that shows up to create some explosive plays as the game goes on. So things like you see in the perimeter blocking. There's a lot of great effort on the film, which is awesome, right? We call it when you make the opponent tap out, and there's a couple times in that film where you see our whole offense rallying to a long run or a pass, and the other colored jersey would stop and watch our guys run past them, right, as the play is still going on. So those sort of things that we emphasize and kind of demand in our program are showing up when we're playing games.
Andy, what did you grade out the offensive line in that first game?
Well, I don't know. Every one of them gets an individual grade. There hardly was a pass pressure, right? I was pleased. I was happy with how it went. There was hardly a pass pressure. I think the only runs that were negative were induced more on the perimeter or the play call than it was what was going on there. So, and again, to your question about what do you see and what stood out, was a group that showed a lot of great effort in running and the ability to move and distort teams, which we're going to need to be able to do. So I'm grading them up pretty high. I was pleased with the group, for sure.
Lance said yesterday that Jalen came back and played the most, maybe the reps that he's had. Did you see that continue today?
Yeah. Yep. Took a lot of reps.
Anything else, Coach?
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.